Hey LEGO community. For those following my account, you know a group of us spent 7 hectic weeks last year building Ghostbusters Afterlife and finished literally minutes before public opening at Fan Expo Denver 2022. We did not get everything done we wanted to do, but we achieved some great lighting, movement, and even a fog effect to the temple. We have been slowly adding more to it as the year progressed. We've taken it to a number of shows and won a couple of different awards. Overall, this was an amazing build. If you want to see more, please visit my channel and check out the full video. As the lifespan of this build winds down, I want to dive into some of the special features. In this video, I'll be covering the trap-filled build and explain my thought process on how I achieved this awesome effect. Now, if you haven't seen the movie, but love the original Ghostbusters from the 80s, I highly recommend you go watch this. Be warned though, huge spoilers ahead. In the movie, we learn Egon Spengler has bought a farm and hid a number of ghost traps in the dirt. This is discovered and put to use by his granddaughter, Phoebe. In case you've forgotten, this is what a ghost trap looks like. The yellow and black stripes is a door. In simple terms, the door opens, a blinding light comes out to capture the ghost, and suck the ghost in. The doors close, and there's a little red blinking light on top to indicate the trap is occupied. So my goal was to have the traps hidden in the field. Switch to a white light indicating that they were trying to capture a ghost, and then finally red lights to indicate that a ghost had been caught. Adam Savage's Tested had the chance to go behind the scenes and see how the film production crew built the ghost traps. Watching this footage, I was able to determine that the trap field was approximately 10 rows wide by 20 traps deep, for a total of 200 traps. I knew I couldn't fit this many in my space, so I settled for an 8 by 10 grid work of traps. I tried to build a Technic frame first that would rotate between the different positions. The overall mechanism was too tall for the space I needed, and it would be too wide, so I would not be able to show as many traps at once as I wanted. I then thought of a sliding mechanism. I used white and red tiles to simulate the lights and played with different spacing between the dirt, the white tiles, and the red tiles, and various designs for the dirt on top to hide the traps. Once I found a design that I liked, I built a small corner of the field. After doing some testing with the lights to make sure it has the desired effect, I then scaled up the trap-filled framework to the full size. I also made sure to do a test fit in its future home to make sure that the size looked correct for the rest of the layout. Each trap gets one red light and two white lights. To accomplish the 8 by 10 grid, or 80 traps, this means I'll be using 240 LEDs in this part of the project alone. I scrounged through all of my Light My Bricks kits and pulled out all the white LEDs. I was still short and had to buy 35 more of their 4-pack LEDs. Thankfully, Light My Bricks has crazy fast shipping and got me my order within a couple of days. I used the 2x Technic plates with holes in the middle to run all the wires, and trans red 1x1 round plates and trans clear 1x2 plates to hold the lights in place. The red light went through one hole, while the 2 white lights went through the other hole. This way, when I flipped it over, I knew which wires were for the red light and which ones were for the white. Once I got all the lights ran through their correct holes, I was able to start wiring them up. As you can see, 240 LEDs makes quite the tangled mess. The white lights are easy. I just needed to turn them on when told to. So I ran all the white lights to 8-port jumper boards and tied the boards together. As I did this, I pulled the red wires off to one of the 4 sides for later wiring. I tried to braid all the white wires as I went and worked in rows to keep everything nice and tidy for future troubleshooting. When I made my lighting order, I decided to get solid on white LEDs instead of flashing LEDs. I did this because it allowed me to use the LEDs for future projects, whereas I have little use for the flashing lights. I happen to have a pile of the Light My Bricks effects boards, so I plan to use these to make the lights flash. I found out later on that this turned out to work in my favor. Due to the way I'm turning on the lights, if I had used the flashing LEDs, all the red lights would have come on at once, as they take a couple of cycles to randomize. Now that I had all the white lights finished, I started running the reds. I used 8 of the Light My Bricks effects boards and tied each output to a 6-port block, which left me 5 LED positions. I then randomly grabbed an LED wire from somewhere on the grid and plugged it into each position. I set the effects boards to a back and forth strobe similar to a road crossing, but adjusted the speed for each one slightly different. Due to having 8 different boards that are running random lights at different speeds, it's quite hard to tell that it's simply going back and forth. You'll notice that I only have some of the 1x2 black and yellow striped tiles in place. This is because I ran out. I had to buy more with expedited shipping from Bricklink. So while I waited, I worked on the movement of the top of the field. My original thought was to have a lever that goes all the way to the front of the display and allow the public to pull or push the field into the correct position. I was at a local LUG meeting, or LEGO user group, when veteran Lego Dad made the comment to me, "You're going to motorize this, right?" To which I responded, "Well, I am now." I played with different cam style setups and gearing, along with different motors to automate the field movement. Initially, I wanted to use the new Lego powered up servo motors and a train hub battery pack. Turns out the train hub and remote only works on one speed when using a non-train motor, and you have to keep the remote button pressed down. I'm told there might be an update to fix this, but I moved on. I decided to use a Power Functions motor and a 9-volt power pack. I used a number of gearing to bring it down to a slow enough speed, and I still only needed to set it to the first speed setting on the power pack. I was having this problem where the contact pads needed to travel just a half stud further, and the jumper plates weren't cutting it. So to fix it, I used a Technic spring and allowed the contact pad to over travel and then push into the spring. I didn't have a good chance to show it earlier, but as you can see here, I'm using the Light My Bricks wireless power connector to power on each set of lights. There's one of these on each side, which makes contact on the instrokes of the piston. I ended up adding another plate to this so it pushes into the spring even further and the light stays on longer. Hooray! My 1x2 yellow and black tiles arrived. Funny story. When Beyond the Brick interviewed me at Brick Slopes in 2022, I decided to show them the mechanism of the trap field. Of course, this is the one time the trap field decided to act up and not function properly. Camera shy, I guess. Turns out I had pulled the 2x4 tile off the top of the gearbox to let them see the gearing, and this was critical to hold the gears together and make the gearbox function. Here you can see the final gearing setup that has been in use for over a year now. We have only had 2 issues with the gearbox. At the first show, one of the Technic pins pushed itself out and just needed to be pushed back in. While at Brick Slopes, we noticed the 1x2 thin Technic frame, which I've doubled up to make the piston movement, had cracked. After those were replaced, the field has worked great. We can finally see the field placed in its home. We had this section of the layout raised 4 bricks off the base plate, so thankfully I was able to get the field to fit within that space. Underneath the field is simply a base plate and one set of tiles, which the field rests on top of. Yeah, that's right. All the wiring and controls and everything else take up 4 bricks worth of space. This display has gone to a dozen different locations, and the trap field has been running for almost 20 days combined. I've been pleasantly surprised at how well it's held up, considering this is my first automated Lego mock. We are now finally seeing some wear and tear on the build in the form of plastic dust building up on the tiles, and the lights are not fully making contact anymore. Thank you for following along with me on this journey. Thousands of people have seen this display, and has one last location to go to. After that, it'll be time to take it apart and move on to a new build. Special thanks to my husband Randy for the idea and being our designer, and to Nikki for pushing us to do a collaboration build. Thank you to Larry, Heather, Roby, Kathy, Aaron, and Noah for each of your contributions.